My relationship with my sister Pam, now 30, and my parents has always been complicated. But what happened over the past few years has pushed the boundaries of strained family ties beyond anything I could have imagined. I'm 27 now, married, and currently in my second trimester of pregnancy. What should have been one of the happiest times of my life has been overshadowed by a history of betrayal, manipulation, and a recent, desperate attempt by my estranged family to reconnect, not out of love, but for reasons that left me stunned and furious. 3 years ago, as I was planning my wedding, Pam was in the middle of a messy divorce. She had been married for 2 years to a man she dated for 3 years before that. Everyone in our family knew that Pam's husband didn't want children. It was one of the first things she mentioned when they got serious. She had confided in our parents, discussing how she wanted kids and hoped to change his mind over time. I remember sitting in the room, silently observing as Pam assured our parents she could convince him. She was always the golden child, the daughter who could do no wrong in their eyes, while I was often treated as an afterthought. Despite their fundamental disagreement on children, Pam married him, confident she could sway him. But predictably, when she began pushing for kids, the relationship soured. Family dinners became tense. Pam was frequently upset, venting about how hard it was to change her husband's mind. To me, it was obvious. She married a man who had been clear from the start about his stance. But I kept my opinions to myself, not wanting to add fuel to the fire. By the time my husband and I had started planning our wedding, Pam's marriage was on the brink of collapse. She had moved back in with our parents, and the fights between her and her husband had escalated to a point of no return. When my parents found out that I was moving ahead with my wedding plans, they approached me with a request that I couldn't believe. They wanted me to postpone my wedding to avoid upsetting Pam, who was going through a difficult time. The idea that I should put my life on hold for my sister's failed marriage was, in my mind, outrageous. They argued that she was devastated because she had to put her plans of becoming a mother on hold. I was stunned by their insensitivity, but stood firm. I told them that my wedding would go on as planned, with or without their support. Their response cut deep. They said if I didn't postpone my wedding, they wouldn't attend. I knew they favored Pam, but this level of favoritism was a shock. I was hurt, but I made peace with it. If they chose her feelings over celebrating one of the biggest moments of my life, so be it. But Pam wasn't satisfied with just our parents boycotting my wedding. She wanted everyone on her side. She began spreading rumors, painting me as the villain. According to her, I had convinced her husband to leave her because I was jealous of her and couldn't stand the idea of her becoming a mother before me. She even told people that I had been influencing him to choose a child-free lifestyle. The lies were ridiculous. I barely knew her husband well enough to have any influence on his life. But Pam lied with such conviction that some people believed her. Invitations to my wedding were declined, and relatives distanced themselves from me without explanation. When the wedding day came, the turnout from my side of the family was sparse. A handful of cousins and a few distant relatives showed up, but it was mostly friends and my husband's family who filled the seats. Despite everything, the day was beautiful. Surrounded by those who truly cared, I found happiness in my husband and the future we were building together. Still, the pain of betrayal lingered. Pam's actions were cruel and calculated, designed to ruin my day simply because she couldn't face her own mistakes. After the wedding, I made a decision to cut Pam and my parents out of my life. Their loyalty to Pam and their willingness to believe her lies over my truth were too much to forgive. The silence between us stretched on for 3 years, and I focused on building a life with my husband, finding peace away from the toxic environment I grew up in. A year after the wedding, my husband and I ran into Pam's ex-husband by chance. We exchanged polite greetings, and he even congratulated us on our marriage. When my husband joked that he could have attended since Pam didn't, her ex looked confused. That's when the truth began to unravel. He revealed that Pam had delayed their mediation meetings, claiming she was too busy with my wedding preparations she never intended to see through. He had been puzzled by her sudden interest in my wedding, but now it made sense. What he told us next explained so much about Pam's erratic behavior. The final straw in their marriage wasn't just the disagreement over children. He admitted that he'd been considering Pam's desire to have a family and was close to changing his mind. But one day, when he brought up the idea of discussing it, Pam made a joke that chilled him. She admitted she'd stopped taking her birth control without telling him, planning to get pregnant and force him to accept it. What she passed off as a joke was a breach of trust so severe that he couldn't stay with her. Hearing this clarified everything for me. Pam knew she had destroyed her marriage, and in her guilt and desperation, she projected her misery onto me. She needed a scapegoat, and I was the easiest target. The rumors, the lies, her refusal to attend my wedding, it all stemmed from her own guilt. When I announced my pregnancy on social media recently, my parents and Pam reached out for the first time in 3 years. Their reason was as selfish as ever. Pam, now infertile after multiple failed rounds of IVF, wanted to share my baby. They presented this as a way for Pam to play a role in my child's life, with my parents even suggesting it would be good for me to have her help. The idea that I should allow Pam, the sister who betrayed me, to co-mother my child was beyond absurd. I told my parents exactly how I felt. Their attempt at reconciliation was only motivated by Pam's needs, not genuine remorse for their actions. They accused me of being harsh, saying that Pam just wanted to spend time with her niece or nephew. But I stood firm, reminding them that I had all the support I needed from my husband and in-laws. Then I said something that I knew would sting. There was a reason Pam hadn't been able to become a mother. Perhaps it was because she wouldn't make a good one. The backlash was immediate. My parents, relatives, and Pam herself bombarded me with messages calling me cruel and heartless. They said I was kicking Pam while she was down, that I should be the one to apologize. But how could I, when every reminder of that time made me relive the pain of what she did? For 3 years, I stayed silent about what really happened. I didn't tell anyone the truth about her divorce, even when I had the chance. But now, with my parents and Pam's lies resurfacing, I decided I'd had enough. I spoke to Pam's ex-husband, who gave me his blessing to share the truth. I posted about it online, detailing everything from the lies she told to the real reason behind her divorce. The fallout was swift. Relatives who had sided with Pam during the wedding were now contacting her in disbelief. My parents and Pam, who had been vocal on social media before, went silent. Messages flooded my inbox, some supportive, others begging me to take the post down. But none of it mattered. For the first time, the truth was out, and I felt a sense of closure. Pam and my parents eventually reached out, offering an apology if I agreed to take the post down. But it was too late. Their apologies were hollow, driven by the backlash rather than any real regret. I told them as much before blocking them. After everything, I wanted peace, not revenge. Now, as I prepare for the arrival of my baby, I am surrounded by the people who have always been there for me. My husband, my in-laws, and my friends remind me every day that family isn't just defined by blood, but by love, loyalty, and respect. And as for Pam and my parents, their absence in my life is a reminder that boundaries are sometimes the healthiest choice, even when they're painful.